2017 has arrived. I am Walter Bernasiak, and welcome to a happy new year of Top 5. The 90s. Greatest decade ever or greatest decade ever? Any 90s kid worth their salt remembers Nickelodeon from that era and the impact it had on our formative years. And who could forget the Nicktoons from the 90s? These cartoons were wholly original and set a tone of success that our favorite orange-hued cable station is still enjoying to this day. But what were the best of the best? What Nicktoons back then stuck with us the most? We're here today to find that out. I'm proud to present the top 5 best 90s Nicktoons. Want sneak peeks at who or what I'm covering next? Want to ask me more about vintage Nickelodeon or anything about the 90s? Well, you can. Follow me on Twitter at awesome_Walter and we can talk about the 90s until you're orange in the face. I also put polls up on there for you guys to vote on, so if you want your voice heard, make sure you check it out this whole week for a 90s party. It's going to be the bomb. Who loves 90s Nicktoons? You love 90s Nicktoons. Let's get started with number 5.
It's Kablam! Where cartoons and comics collide. Now to take you inside and turn the pages, here are your hosts, Henry and June.
In a lot of ways, Kablam was a microcosm of everything we loved about 90s Nick. It was off the wall, unpredictable, and featured different animation styles that resulted in something very unique, and we haven't seen the likes of it since. Kablam was an animated sketch comedy show that was hosted by our page-turners Henry and June. They would introduce each segment and often have adventures of their own. Reoccurring segments included Sniz and Fondue, Life with Loopy, Prometheus and Bob, and Action League Now, which later became its own series. Hearing that opening theme never failed to get me excited, and you were always in for an energetic experience when watching this show. What really made it stick out from the pack was its variety. From short to short, we were treated to different types of comedy, and chances were, if you didn't like one segment, you'd like the next. The practical creation of this show is also pretty impressive when compared to today's computer-generated standards. In addition to its very funny stop-motion work, Kablam invented Chuckamation, which combined stop-motion with live-action shots where the characters were thrown or dropped into frame and also sometimes wiggled around when talking. This was how probably the most popular part of the show, Action League Now, was produced.
The Flesh, he's super strong and super naked. Thunder Girl, she flies like thunder. Stinky Diver, a former Navy commando with an attitude as bad as his odor. And Meltman, with the power to melt.
Kablam was awesome. Looking back on it today really hammers home just how different it was. Missed this show? Well, fear not. The creator of Henry and June, Mark Merrick, has every single episode of Kablam available for free on his website. So go check out some episodes. Number 4. Anyway, Doug was created by Jim Jenkins and is absolutely a trademark 90s Nicktoon, even if Disney tried to steal it away for its final 3 seasons. Douglas Yancey Funny is an average 11-year-old with a wild imagination. He moves to Bluffington with his parents, sister Judy, and dog Porkchop. As he makes new friends and enemies, Doug navigates adolescence in his new hometown while going through every emotion a young kid tries to figure out at his age. His relationships, experiences, and more are chronicled daily in his trusty journal. I think a lot of us identified with Doug through the airing of the series on both Nickelodeon and Disney. He represented the imagined exaggerations of our hopes and dreams, as well as our fears. He's an endearing, empathetic character that we want to see do well. He's easy to root for, and that dynamic with the audience sustained the show for its 4 seasons on Nick and beyond. We can't talk about Doug without mentioning its side characters and very detailed setting of Bluffington. Each character became a pretty well-rounded person. Like Doug, they were also filled with hopes, dreams, and fear, but represented them in different ways. Even Roger.
I'm Doug Funny.
The happenings in Bluffington always led to interesting situations for the characters involved. For example, the constant presence of Mayor White was a fun way for everyone to stay connected with what was happening in town and created some fun stories. Doug's interactions with Skeeter, Judy, Mr. and Mrs. Dink, and of course his everlasting crush, Patty Mayonnaise, were often the heart of the show, and they were easy to instantly take a liking to. With 52 episodes airing in its Nickelodeon run, Doug resonated with a lot of kids in the 90s, and I'm definitely one of them. Number 3.
SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants!
That's right, SpongeBob debuted in 1999, and most of its first season was aired that year. Since that whole first season was produced before the turn of the century, I'll exclusively be talking about it. Second season and on belongs to the early 2000s. Everyone still seems to know who SpongeBob is, as his show is still on the air, but just in case, SpongeBob SquarePants lives in a pineapple in the town of Bikini Bottom. He enthusiastically works as a fry cook for the cheap Mr. Krabs at the Krusty Krab with his irritable neighbor Squidward. SpongeBob's inner circle includes Patrick the starfish, Sandy the squirrel, and his pet snail Gary. Together they engage in more nautical nonsense than you can shake a wet sponge at. It says a lot that just the first season from this show is so high up on the list. Many of those episodes from the first few seasons are Looney Tune level classic. I remember hearing about this show and seeing a little preview of it before it officially came out, and I was both unimpressed and confused. However, once the show debuted, the clever writing, jokes, and characters quickly changed my mind. While classics like Rip Pants, Tea at the Tree Dome,
Air is not good, Patrick! Air is not good! You're just being shy.
and Pizza Delivery,
Rusty Cray, pizza is the pizza, yeah, for you and me.
are hilarious and entertaining. SpongeBob also had a mute mini-episode mixed into its debut called Reef Blower that showed another level of creativity from everyone who worked on the show. It was immediately obvious Nickelodeon had a mega hit on its hands. The first season also contains the debuts of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, who were always good for a laugh. I'll briefly mention here that the show's popularity and quality seemed to only increase through the first 4 seasons. After SpongeBob's first movie, creator Steven Hillenburg resigned as showrunner, and the show seemed to suffer for it. Current SpongeBob episodes are almost unrecognizable to the genius content it started off with. However, nothing can tarnish the brilliance of that first season. It alone stands toe-to-toe with the best Nick had to offer in the decade it debuted. I'm ready to move on with the countdown. Are you? Number 2. Before SpongeBob debuted, I think it's safe to say that Rugrats was the crown jewel of Nickelodeon's animated projects. Tommy, his cousin Angelica, and friends Chucky, Phil, and Lil are babies who go on adventures in everyday life. The smallest things become life-changing events to these babies as we see them experience life for the first time, including birthdays, baseball games, holidays, and more. I'm not sure anyone expected a cartoon about babies to become as big as it did. Rugrats ran from 1991 all the way to 2004. It also launched 3 feature films and a spin-off series. Because the characters in this show were so young, I think it continued to connect with new viewers once they came of age, while the quality of the show retained the older kids, a phenomenon that sustained the series for many years. The great thing about Rugrats was that the stories were very interesting and viewers could relate to experiencing the world from a similar point of view. Seeing things for the first time and dealing with problems that aren't that big of a deal, but seemed like world-ending incidents at the time, are universal themes that even entertained adult fans of the show. The quality of the show didn't really waver too much, especially in the 90s. The first 5+ seasons all aired then and showcased this series in its prime.
A baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
While Rugrats was a decently close second, there's only one show, in my opinion, that takes the top spot. Honestly, I loved all those 90s Nicktoons as a kid. They were special then, and they're special now. However, all of them don't hold up upon rewatching. So, before we get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. And the number 1 best 90s Nicktoon is... There really wasn't much of a choice for me here. Hey Arnold is without a doubt the best 90s Nicktoon for a plethora of reasons. Arnold is a 9-year-old boy who lives with his grandparents in their boarding house. He's a very morally upright kid who often sees the best in people and their situations. In addition to the crazy characters who live with him and his grandparents, the neighborhood kids that Arnold goes to school with are very important parts of the show's identity. These friends include his closest confidant Gerald, the school klutz Eugene, big bully Harold, and tough girl Helga, who claims to hate Arnold in public but actually has been in love with him for years. With the urban environment they live in playing as big of a part in many of the stories as the characters themselves, Hey Arnold is a rich and surprisingly deep kid show that's uniquely funny, authentic, and as effortlessly cool as its main character. Running for 5 seasons and putting out a feature film in the process, Hey Arnold is the rare 90s Nicktoon that has gotten better with age. Is it any wonder that Nickelodeon is bringing the show back to end the series with a TV movie in November of this year? Now, only the first 4 seasons aired in the 90s, so I'll just mention that the ending of the show and its final season added so much depth to everything we already saw, and it's impossible to not take that into account. Go rewatch the episode The Journal, and if you were a fan of the show at any point, you'll appreciate the attention to character development that final episode did for Arnold. Besides the great characters and accurate portrayal of growing up with your neighborhood friends, Hey Arnold is famous for another distinctive aspect of the show: its music. Jim Lang created themes that added to the cool nature of the show and cemented it as something exceptional. Not many other shows are as well known for its music. I suggest you find a playlist of the soundtrack from Hey Arnold and enjoy these jams. Creator Craig Bartlett based the show on his experiences growing up and was putting Arnold out there in some form as early as the 80s. What Arnold became was a very well-defined character that almost always did the right thing, but never came off preachy. I could spend a whole episode talking about this show. It's that good. If you want to see a top 5 best Hey Arnold episodes in the near future, comment below. There you have it, the top 5 best Nicktoons from Nickelodeon's golden era. I want to hear what you guys think. What is your favorite 90s Nicktoon? Who or what do you want me to cover next on the show? Leave a comment and let me know. Follow me on Twitter at awesome_Walter to take part in more polls about what I may count down in the future. Come back next week for another special episode of Top 5.